Živijo sem skupaj, moje ime je Mateja in pogovarjam se z Aleksom, ki je ustanovitelj šole, zasebne šole v Kaliforniji. In to je šola, ki izvaja samovodeno učenje, v angleščini se reče self-directed learning in mogoče nekateri ta izraz že poznate. Tako da samovodeno učenje bo najina rdeča nit ali se pravi neko središčna tema. Tako da zelo zanimiva tema, zelo pomembna tema. Tako da bi jaz zdaj Aleksa kar prosila, da se najprej predstavi. So I would like to ask you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Alex Khost. I'm originally from New York. I've lived for the last 3 years in Cluj-Napoca, Romania. And yeah, my background is in education, starting out as a teacher. And I started a school many, many years ago based on the principles of self-directed education. And I've done other projects around that, the notion of self-directed education, or really kind of the umbrella, the name that I give to it is really youth rights, because it's more than just about education. It's about young people's rights as human beings. Yeah.
So can you, like, self-directed learning is really something new in Slovenia. So people, when you say self-directed learning or samovodeno učenje, people cannot form any image about it. What is this?
So the belief behind it is that young people have within them innately an understanding of themselves, and that we are born curious learners, which you can see in any newborn or infant child, the thirst, the desire, and the ability to comprehend abstract languages by listening and hearing the sounds of their parents and the people around them and their surroundings and environment, and to make sense of the world, and then the physical world, to learn how to pull themselves up and to stand and to walk, and then how to hold a pair of scissors and how to use a knife, how to cut away from yourself. All the different things that we understand this for children who are earlier than school age. We see them doing it, but then we don't see that anymore because they go to school.
Yes.
And when they're in school, then they have teachers who are instructing them. The idea of self-directed education really is that you take that idea of those early years and you just continue it. Yes. So rather than going to school where there's somebody who's telling you how to do things, you just keep listening to yourself as the learner. What are you curious about? What are the tools, the skills? What are the resources? What do you have to research? Who do you have to ask questions to continue your own education? And so rather than having somebody give you a curriculum or give you a list of things to learn, you start with what you're most curious about and you expand out from there. So that's the basic principles. There's a lot that then can go into that. For example, to me, one of the most important, maybe the most important component beyond that for me is age mixing, which is when we're in schools, oftentimes we're only with children of our own age or maybe a year or two younger. And an adult who's the educator, the person who has the knowledge that imparts it on us. But really, if you look at historically the way that humans learned for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years, you learn from everybody in your community. So you learn from the elders, right? The people who have been around the longest and have a lot of wisdom and experience. But oftentimes children are learning from the kid who's just a little bit older than them. So the 6-year-old sees the 8-year-old reading books and becomes excited to know what they're doing and becomes inspired by it. The 10-year-old is showing an 8-year-old how to ride a bicycle, and that sort of a thing. And I always joke, I say, no kid wants to learn from an old person like me.
Yeah.
They want to learn from the kid who's a couple of years older than them, who's really cool, who they want to be like. And so there's this natural enthusiasm and inspiration because you see the kid who's a little bit older than you and you say, man, I want to be like them.
Yeah.
And so that's it. That's the motivation. It's right there.
Yeah.
And then the opposite is just as true and just as important, which is as we get older, we learn how to nurture younger children. And if you've ever taught something to somebody, you realize how hard it is to explain something. And you realize, oh man, I need to really understand my subject if I'm going to teach somebody else how to do it. And so when the older person is explaining it to a younger person, they have to reflect and review and reevaluate their own understanding of whatever it is they're teaching. And they actually, therefore, reinforce their own learning on the subject. And so it goes both ways. The younger person and the older person benefit from it.
And the if I may, the older person has to find ways to touch the younger person, to really touch, because if you are not, we say touch, I hope it's a good English. When you're not touched by the one who is teaching you, you will not learn. It will just go, we say, in one ear in and
out the other. We have the same expression.
So,
It's
so it's a relationship.
It's relationship.
Actually,
it's also applied learning. Because you're in relationship, it becomes appropriate to what you want to be learning at the moment. Whereas if you go into a classroom where there's some adult who maybe has a curriculum from a Department of Education, the curriculum, whoever wrote that doesn't know the learner. And so they don't know what's interesting to them, how to apply it to their lives. And so there's a disconnect between what's being taught and what the person who's learning is inspired by, what they want to learn. And so it really helps, especially at a younger age, it helps make sense. I think maybe the subject that we all struggle with the most in this is math. Right? So, why should I be learning? I can remember being in an algebra class when I was a early teen. And my teacher being like, well, we have to solve X. And I remember being like, what is X? And having no idea. And doing terribly in math. And then years later, I chose to go to school for computer programming. And all of a sudden, I had to solve for something realistic. Like there was something I actually wanted to do. And all of a sudden, X became the thing that I wanted to do. And all of a sudden, math made a lot of sense to me. And I think it's not that math is wrong or that we teach it wrong or whatever. We don't associate it to problems in a person's life. A child might understand math really well if it helps them fix their bike. Or play a computer game that they really want to play.
Build a chicken coop.
All of a sudden you need to do measurement to know how to build that chicken coop so the chicken isn't escaping. And all of a sudden math becomes
really important and interesting. Also interesting.
And so I've witnessed many children who have been self-directed in their learn math, who comprehensively understand it beautifully because it's associated to the problems that they want to solve in their life, and it's not abstract. So that's kind of the basis behind why it works and what's helpful with it.
So I always say learning is a part of life. So when you are living and doing things, you are also learning. So can we paint a picture of these two ways of learning, that one that we all know so well and that is happening in schools, and the one that you just described. You did describe, how it looks in practice, but maybe for someone who knows only this type of learning, this can be difficult to imagine. And it is also difficult to imagine because it's such a part of life. It's so difficult to take it out. But maybe we can try. Anyway,
sure. No. I think the best way to do it is with realistic examples. So we're all familiar with in the United States, at least, I'd say the classic classroom period is maybe 45 minutes to an hour. Mm-hmm. And so you would have math class for an hour, and then you go to science class for an hour, and you go to English class for an hour, and so on and so forth. When you're self-directed learning, and I'll give a couple. So I have 4 children of my own. My oldest is now an adult, and my youngest is still a toddler. So having observed my older children going through this over the years, and having not gone through this myself, I grew up in a conventional school. I went to the public schools outside of New York City, and I didn't really get it until I was doing it with my own kids, and it took me a lot of time to understand what they were doing. Mm-hmm. But I can remember, like, one of the earliest examples was my oldest son wanted to build what we oftentimes call a go-kart or a soapbox derby cart. One of those, a box with 4 wheels on it that you can ride down a hill. Yes. Not one with a motor on it. He just wanted to make the basic one when he was very little. And working with him and letting him use materials and learning how to cut wood, the challenge of getting wheels onto a box that still spin and point in the same direction. For a little kid, he spent, literally years where he would just keep making go-kart after go-kart. And there would be gaps. Maybe he wouldn't build one for a year, but he spent most of his childhood building things like that, where the first ones barely worked if they didn't work, or, I'd have to step in and help him in some way. But he kept with it over the years until he started making ones that were quite amazing. Or he also was like, my oldest son was a real builder. He wanted to, he would take, I remember he used to make robot hands and by robot hands, I don't mean, where he would have a cardboard box and he would cut it to make like an extension on his own arm, and he would hook up rubber bands into it, and he'd make like grippy hands at the end of it that could pick things up. He was that type of a kid, and he would spend hours and days and months of his life that even if he was able to do that in a conventional school where they allowed that as a subject to learn, it would have happened the right way, because it would have been put into an hour period here and there. Exactly. And he needed to be able to spend hours and days and think about it and ponder it. And then he also needed hours and days to not think about it. And where he wasn't forced to do it. Yeah. Maybe a more similar to convention example, my next son is really into music, and he picked up. I remember when he was 6, going on about 7 years old. He told me he wanted to learn how to play an instrument, and I asked him what instrument, and he picked the euphonium, which is the octave between a trumpet and a tuba. Okay. So the really big brass instrument and the smaller brass. It's a medium-sized one. Okay. Why he picked that instrument of all instruments, but the instrument itself was the size of him. Wow. It was huge. Yeah. And he was a skinny little kid. Yeah. And I kept asking teachers to teach, because I didn't know how to play it. And they said, he can't. And I said, why not? And they said, he's too small.
Yes.
And they said, he has to start with the trumpet.
Yes.
And he said, I don't want to learn the trumpet. I want to learn the euphonium.
Yeah.
And I finally found this one. It's been his musical teacher for over 10 years now, who said he wants to learn the euphonium. He can learn the euphonium.
Yes, yeah.
And I remember, and this was outside of a school. I remember he said the teacher gave him some song and said, all right, learn this. And he said, I don't want to learn that song.
Yes.
And the teacher said, well, what song do you want to learn? And he said, I want to learn the theme song to Star Wars. No, the evil song, that Darth Vader, the dark song. That was the one he wanted to learn. And so it was not, I imagine, the typical song you start with, but
Yes.
and after a certain period of time, he was playing it. And then he went on. He now plays 7 or 8 different instruments. He plays the accordion and the piano and the guitar and the bass and the harmonica, all sorts of instruments. And he would play. He started out learning jazz, and then started learning rock and roll. And it's funny, when I'm at home now, he will just walk into the room and pick up some instrument and pick up something of music. And I've listened to him play the same song over years, and I've listened to him pick up all new things. The whole point of this is there was no straight path. Now, this is a subject that's a little bit more, but even that, he was learning it in a way that we don't learn in school.
Yes.
It just fit the way he wanted to learn it. And I watched him struggle for years learning how to play an instrument, how to make notes, how to play a scale, how to play songs. And now he's learning like music theory, like the mathematical end of music, of like how you have different notes play that make you sound happy or sad or whatever. Like the real scientific end of music. And the only reason why it happened is because he was able to explore this at his own pace with his own curiosity. And I'm sure there are lots of subjects that he tried. Like, for example, he was really into dance when he was 6 years old. And I took him to a dance school, and he tried dancing and did it for maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
And he's never danced another day in his life.
Yes.
And he was able to also, not just as much as he was able to focus on the subjects that were interesting to him, he was interested in the subjects that were the subjects that were not interesting to him. But he was able to drop.
Yeah, and he had to learn also about these subjects to find out that they are not interesting, or that he doesn't need this knowledge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes. So it's self-directed learning. Really, the gasoline for self-directed learning is inner motivation.
Yes.
And the child's interests, and whereas in schools, what's the motivation there?
To get a good grade, to not be in trouble.
Exactly.
To not, be a failure.
Yeah.
And what that motivates you to do in a conventional school is, quite frankly, to cheat the system. It becomes, I remember my wife is Romanian, and so I've been learning Romanian because I want to, I live in Romania, I want to be able to communicate, but more so I want to be able to, I want to understand the culture and the language, I'm interested in it. And I started using Duolingo, the app.
I know that, yes.
And I can remember at some point in time where I was like, oh my God, I didn't do a lesson today. And, you have to keep doing lessons every day.
Yes.
So, and I would find the easiest lesson I could possibly do and do it just to do it. Yes. And I remember one day being like, what am I doing? Why am this isn't teaching me the language. I'm not doing this for a school or anything. Yeah. I'm just cheating myself.
Yeah.
And I think that it was a great reflection on what's the purpose of this? Is it to cheat a system so you can go do what?
Yeah.
So why memorize for like I went to schools where I would cheat on my homework or just rush through it or study for an exam just to be able to pass the exam knowing I wasn't going to remember any of that later on. For what? What good does that do? Whereas if you have actual inner motivation, then you go and you find out the things that you're interested in, and just as importantly, the things you're not interested in. And it allows you to then go on with your life capably and confidently knowing what it is you want to be doing, how you want to be spending your time. And a really important part of it is in how to negotiate that with other people, which is something that we don't get in school. No. You sit in a desk, you listen to a teacher, they tell you what to do. You don't ever, or even when you get into a conflict in school, who resolves that conflict? The teacher or the director of the school, not the children. And so then we get to the age where we're adults. We don't know how to have a good relationship with our partner, how to negotiate with our boss when you have the difficult colleague at work who you don't get along with. We don't know how to negotiate with them because we never did it.
We never practiced it.
And when you're little and you're self-directed, instead you're negotiating and saying, "Hey, this is what I want to learn." Or you're upsetting me because you're making a lot of noise and I'm trying to do something quiet right now or whatever. And you practice every day. And I would much prefer, and I mean this very sincerely, I would much prefer my own children to understand themselves and how to work with other people than to learn math or writing. Because that they can pick up. That they can watch a YouTube video and figure out. But learning how to deal with other people is really hard, and you need to practice it for a long time.
And that is something that we have to change in our mentality. That actually, what is more important? To have tons of information that you can find everywhere nowadays, or skills to how to work, be with other people, have a relationship with other people, have skills for living. So one thing I was also, when you were talking about your experiences with or experiences of your children with self-directed learning, probably they were happy. Happiness. I think happiness is also byproduct, very important byproduct of self-directed learning, because when you can fulfill your not only needs but also interests and your curiosity, and you can go and research what attracts you and you would really like to do, it makes you happy.
I think the easiest way to explain it to people who haven't witnessed it is think of the thing that you do for you. So you go to work and you cook and you clean and you take care of your kids or whatever, and then you have those 2 hours to yourself where you get to choose what you want to. It could be reading a book, it could be making a painting, it could be singing, whatever it is that you like doing, and how that makes you feel. Is all of a sudden life is worth it. All of a sudden you feel so fulfilled and happy. It's not even necessarily happy. It is happy, but it's contentment. It's the suddenly there's meaning and feeling and imagine your entire childhood being that. And literally I mean your entire childhood being that. I watched my kids grow up. My children have never taken a test, never been graded until they wanted to be, never were required to take a class, and spent their entire childhoods feeling contentment and fulfillment and understanding meaning and direction and knowing where they wanted to go with their lives. I used to walk them to so I've unschooled them. I've had them at home, and sometimes we were at self-directed schools in New York. And I remember when my two oldest sons were little, I'd hold their hands, one in my right hand, one in my left hand, and we'd walk to school. And I would say to them, "So, what are you going to do at school today?" And they'd say, I don't know. And I'd say, you realize there are 1.1 million children in New York City, over 1 million children in New York City, and none of those other children can be asked that question.
Yes.
Because none of those children get to decide what they want to do with their day. Yeah. Their day is made up for them, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
And you get to go every day and say, what do I want to do today? And then you go and figure it out. I do want to say, there's a little bit of a lie, because the opposite end of contentment or happiness or whatever is boredom. Mm-hmm. And something that's so missing today from childhood is boredom, and how crucially important it is.
Yeah.
And I mean that from the distractions of cell phones or video games or whatever, but just it doesn't have to be that. It can also be like, I don't know how it is in Slovenia, but in New York, you go to school, and then even at lunchtime, or if you have a recess, it's organized by an adult. Then maybe there's an after-school program that's organized by an adult. Then you go home and you do your homework, and it's organized by an adult. And then you don't even get to decide what you're eating or whatever. And then you go to bed and you start it over. And then on the weekends, it's organized by an adult. And there's programs, or your parents are making the decisions. And you spend your whole childhood, you don't ever ask yourself, what is it that I want to do?
Yeah.
And the boredom, that period of time where you say, well, what is it do I want to do? And where you say, my kids would come up to me and say, Dad, I'm bored. And I'd say, great.
Yes.
Because that is introspection. Yes, that's the period of time where you have to say, well, I could do anything. What am I going to do?
Yes.
And being able to ask yourself that over and over and over again is really, really, really healthy for you.
Yeah.
Because it makes you understand you. It makes you understand how you want to spend your time. And it makes you reflect on how you have been spending your time. And that's just as important.
And in our time, it's a luxury.
Yes.
And it is a necessity.
Yeah.
In reality, it's a necessity, but we make it a luxury. Just... Not as you said, not many children can do that.
Yeah.
One more question, maybe. We were talking about the learning that happens in schools, and then self-directed learning, and we know very well what is the role of the adult in the school setting. But what is the role of the adult in self-directed learning? What would you say?
I think there's a couple of roles. I think the most important role is this isn't it's not negligence. I think a lot of people think that you take your kids out of school and you let them be self-directed. And you say, here, kid, be self-directed. Good luck. See you in 18 years. But it's not that. The adult is there as a model. I think it's really important for the adult to also be enjoying their life and showing what it is. Like I say sometimes, me making time for me and not for my kids is me modeling for them self-health.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's me taking care of me.
Yes.
And that's just as important for them as me taking care of them.
Yeah.
I've also lived in a lot of places and had a lot of jobs and had a lot of experiences, and those are good things to share with them. And sometimes it inspires them. Sometimes I tell them stories, or I see, once you have the trust of the child, once they genuinely know you're on their side.
Yes.
I know people aren't going to believe me, but they listen to you.
Yes, they do.
because all of a sudden they don't think you're manipulating them.
Yes,
they think you're saying... So when I say to my kids, like, hey, you haven't gone for a walk today. You haven't been outside, or, here's a book that I read that really inspired me. I think you would like it. My kids don't hear the book and say, oh, come on, you're just trying to manipulate me into reading this. They say, really? What's it about?
Yes.
And I say, oh, it's about this. And it made me think about you because we had that conversation the other day. And then I remembered this book and I said, oh, man, you would love this book.
Yes.
And most of the time, my kids end up reading the books.
Yes.
And most of the time, I pick things that actually are appropriate because I'm actually genuinely like you
Yes.
would to a friend.
Yes.
Or to your partner, your husband or wife or whomever.
Yes.
You might say, oh, you're not trying to manipulate them into something. You genuinely actually know who the person is.
Yes.
You have a relationship with them and you're handing it to them. And you build that type of a relationship. So I'd say adults do have wisdom and experience and can help be a guide in a sense. That's probably the most important role. But there's other roles that the other obvious role is to be the defender. And that is society always is trying to steal childhood from children and is always trying to manipulate them or manipulate them in a different way, in like that sort of, I want to say, not to sound too political or something, but like the capitalistic way of I can remember my kids showing me YouTube videos they watched on something, and I would say, well, that's product placement. And they'd say, what? And I say, well, it's like an advertisement where they made it into a story because they want you to buy something or do something or whatever. And they go, what are you talking about? And I'd say, well, and we would talk about how, marketing and advertising is manipulating them, or, how like different places are trying to sell them things, or people are trying to get them to do things that aren't healthy for them or aren't in their best interest. And so there's that role.
Yes.
There's also the very basic role of here's maybe my most guiding principle to parents,
To parents, yeah.
or to adults who spend time with young people, which is danger.
Okay.
So we justify what we do with children so often in the case of, well, that's dangerous.
Yes.
I need to stop that. Or, those sorts of, so often things are justified based on danger. And oftentimes they're really, really manipulating horrible things that really, it's not because it's dangerous, it's because actually I really just want you to do something.
Yeah.
Or even like something simple, like when I was a child, I was told that if you drink a lot of coffee, you will be short.
Really?
This was a myth that went around. And when I was an adult drinking a cup of coffee, probably, I was thinking about, because I'm quite tall, thinking, it didn't make me short. And then I was like, wait a minute. That's not true. Why were people telling me that? Oh, it's because they didn't want me to have caffeine and they didn't want me running around like crazy.
Yeah.
That's manipulation. That's terrible. Like, why would you tell a child that? Well, you tell them because you're manipulating them. Why don't you just tell them, hey, it's late, I'm tired, I was with you all day, and if you were to drink that, you would be up crazy running around. Like, why aren't we just honest with them? I don't get it.
Yeah.
But so the danger thing is this. There are two types of dangers. There are risks and there are hazards. Both of them are dangerous. One we want children to have and one we don't want children to have. No one wants their child to step on a nail or to touch a hot stove that they don't know is hot. To do that would be foolish, right? That's a hazard. It's the danger that the child or the person is unaware of, and the person who is aware of it, when you have a baby, they don't know that a stove is hot or even fire is hot or something like that. And it's our job to help them to help them understand those things and to help steer them away from those things. And that's great.
Yes.
And adults should do that with people. Of course, we don't want people getting harmed. But there's a whole other end of it, risk, which is dangers we do want them to take. And that is the child who climbs the tree and goes out on the branch. They could fall off. They could break their leg. They could get hurt.
Yes.
But the child has decided that they want to do it.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that it's very clear to them that they could get hurt.
Yes. Yeah.
And you watch children do this all the time. You're riding a bicycle. They could fall off. They could get hurt, or learning how to do the trick on the bicycle, go off the jump a little bit, or whatever. And those are things that and it's interesting because children naturally won't. No one is going to climb. The first time they climb the tree all the way, way up. they're going to climb to the first branch,
Yes.
right? And they're going to cling to it for dear life
Yeah.
and be so proud of themselves. But then after they've done that 10 times or 100 times, then they start climbing a little bit higher and a little bit, and they keep, and we are naturally biologically built,
Yeah.
scientifically built,
Yeah.
like nature built us to take that risk just a little bit further,
And
just a little bit
yeah,
further,
yeah.
just a little bit further. I always, the example I give is sometimes it gets messy and it gets confusing. So all of a sudden that child wants to climb the tree and it's raining outside and it's slippery and they don't quite get it. Now that risk maybe is a hazard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And again, the adult, same kid, same tree,
Yeah.
but there's a different environmental difference that makes it slip from one to the other. Or there's their older sibling or their friend who's really cool, is really good at climbing trees and is way up at the top.
Yes.
And it's saying, what are you, a wimp? Oh, come on, come on. And now all of a sudden they go past their risk into hazard because they want to be like the other person, right?
Yeah.
And the only way to assess that as an adult is to have a relationship with them, and a trustful relationship where you spend time with them. Because if you don't know the child, you don't know their ability to climb a tree, so you don't know what's a risk and what's a hazard for them.
Yeah.
You need to know the person. You need to have witnessed and been with them and allowed them the time where you're entrusting them to say, listen, you know, or where they're going to listen to you and they'll say, oh, sorry, you didn't know. I already know how to climb a tree.
Yeah.
And that where you can have an honest conversation with one another. And so it really is, it's trustful parenting.
Yes. And
It's saying, look, I love you and I care about you. So I'm going to try and point out hazards to you. You let me know when that's a risk.
Yeah.
And I promise you I'm going to listen to you.
Yeah.
And then prove it by actually listening to them and actually letting them go do it. And it can be really scary.
Really scary,
I remember my oldest son, when he was, I think, about 9 years old, he said, I want to ride the subway by myself. He wanted to get on the New York City subway by himself. And I was like, oh my God. Like, you know, all the things that could happen. And then I thought, well, nobody wants to get lost. Nobody wants to get pushed onto the tracks or have some scary person do something to them or whatever, which is all the things that were going through my head. He knows it. He's been riding the subway for years. He understands how scary the subway can be, that he could get lost, that he could have horrible things or really weird people that are in New York do things with him. This is a risk he wants to take. This isn't a hazard. He knows the New York City subway. This isn't a kid from Slovenia who's it's their first day on the subway in New York, right? This is a kid who grew up on the subway.
Yeah.
It's a risk. And we spent several months where, you know, where I would make him take me on the subway, but I wouldn't say anything. So he'd have to figure out the direction.
Nice,
He'd have to buy his own Metro card.
Wow.
Ultimately, I bought him his own phone, and because in New York, having the phone. His first time on the subway by himself, I didn't know this until after, maybe a week later. He was going to school, and his school was very far. It was a 45-minute subway ride. It was a long subway ride.
Yeah.
So his first time that he did it completely by himself, he got off at the wrong stop. He went upstairs, got out, looked and said, oh no, I went to the wrong place. And said, oh, there's a bus that transfers you. Got on the bus, knew how to transfer, sat down. It took him, and then he went to school. And like a week later, he was talking about, oh yeah, when I took the bus. And I said, what? And he said, oh yeah, I had to transfer because I went to the wrong stop. And I said, you did what? And he was saying it to me like, oh, yeah, it was easy, sort of a thing. But that was a lot, and it was really scary for me. But I really feel like the more you can assess, all right, is this a risk or is it a hazard? And let them do the risk, or at least have the conversation with them about it. That's such a guiding principle for me. Once you have that, it makes it so easy to then, whenever you're confronted with like, I'm scared about this as your father, as your mother, whatever. Like, I don't want you to be harmed. All right, is it a hazard or is it a risk? Is it just because I'm scared myself, or Another one is peer pressure of adults, right? Like the amount of times where I was on the playground and the other adults are looking at me like, oh, what are you letting your child do?
Yeah.
And I realized I was restricting my kids, not because I actually thought it was dangerous, but because I didn't want the other parents to look at me like I'm a weirdo.
So it's like taking risks in life. It's really important because you get experiences, you get knowledge, you get insights. But on the other side, it also demands of the parents to trust. You know, that you as a parent, that you just trust the child.
Yeah.
That he or she will do okay. And also life, the environment.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, in our time, quite a job for parents.
It is.
I remember when I was small, I could go everywhere with my bike. I was living in a village otherwise, but we had a really wide or big territory, you know, our group of children, and we played and we did things. I cannot imagine, you know, nowadays that my children would have this kind of freedom.
Yeah.
And then I'm asking myself, what happened? Where is this trust that my parents had that I don't have? And it's not only me, it's virtually everybody, you know, or a lot of parents. And this is this trust, and it's also for self-directed learning. You have to trust that the child will learn what he or she has to learn. And if you go to the classroom, the teacher doesn't have to have this trust.
Yeah.
The teacher just says you have to learn this and this and this. And if you don't learn this, then it's your fault. You know, just said very, how do you say, crudely.
Yeah.
So we are I feel in a really weird situation with this trust. You know, we just don't have, there is no trust.
Yeah.
Nowhere. It's not in the classrooms. And then we go outside the classrooms. There's also no trust. And then if there is no trust, there is no life experiences because we don't take risks. And if there is no life experience, there is less knowledge, less insight, less wisdom. So where are we going? It's a really huge story, but we talked about it earlier, not in this conversation. Then when you are busy with these learning things, actually at the end you found out that you have to be dealing with the whole society.
Yes. You know, something interesting that I've read from research, that apparently the greatest cause for depression, like clinical depression, is the sense of a lack of control of your own life.
Yeah, I can believe that, yes.
Which makes a lot of sense, right? If you don't feel in control of your own life, that's going to lead towards depression.
Yeah.
And if you feel that way for an extended period of time, you're out of control, not in control of your own life for a long period of time, that causes depression.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what we do to children.
Exactly.
They don't have control of their own lives. And you look at the statistics of
and then you can also not develop trust.
Right.
Because you can develop trust only when you experience yourself being successful in things that you're doing.
And the trust can't be fake.
Yes. No.
You can't say, hey, you can ride the subway yourself, but then I'm going to sneak behind you and sit 2 seats behind you and watch you go. You can't. You have to close your eyes and let go and say, all right, you're ready for this. You can do it. And I'm actually going to let you. And that means even letting kids at times, I'm not saying deathly mistakes, but letting them make the wrong mistake. You know, like where you're like, I really don't think you should do this.
Yeah.
But that's another part of it is making mistakes.
Yeah.
The way that, you know, the joke I always say is the expert in a field is the person who's made all of the mistakes in that field.
Yeah.
And we keep stopping children from making mistakes. And like even things like simple things like cutting with a knife, right? We don't want kids to cut themselves.
Yes.
And so we don't give them knives. I worked once for an organization that had recorded over about a 40-year period of time. This is in New York. In the 1970s, the average 5-year-old capably could use a pair of adult scissors. In present day, it's like the average 7 or 8-year-old. Because we don't give them the tool.
No, we don't.
And I always think like, all right, yeah, my kids have all cut themselves, but none of them have bled to death from it. None of them are missing a limb or something like that. Yeah, you need to cut yourselves once in a while. But then, and a knife is actually quite a, like, you cut this way, and if you cut this way, you're going to hurt yourself. Like, it's a pretty easy tool to pick up. My kids were using knives capably when they were 4. 3 maybe even.
But then if I make a parallel with learning, also in learning you have to take risks. You just have to, and you do make mistakes because nobody is perfect. And I think in a society, and I totally understand that we like you said, we don't want our kids to get hurt. But then we create such a system, or in learning, we don't want our kids to feel, that they make mistakes or that they fail in some task. But then we create such an environment, such a system that that this pain that they experience while failing, nobody likes to fail. You feel a little bit of pain or discomfort or whatever, and to avoid that we create a system that just inflicts suffering and pain all the time, because it's just control. You are not allowed to make a mistake. You have to be perfect. You have to good grade, la la. You know what I mean. So we went from, because we are so afraid of pain and suffering, and again, it's not a death pain or something. It's just learning and making mistakes, to a system where nobody is allowed to make mistakes, because then the grade will be bad and the teacher will be angry and parents will be angry, all of this. But we cannot prevent making mistakes, because also in this system children make mistakes. Isn't it better to allow them to make mistakes and then to learn something from these mistakes, and then to do it again or in a different way, than to grade them and give them bad grade because they made a mistake? So is this not strange? I mean, why? Why?
And it goes back to the motivation.
Exactly.
If the more you can put the motivation upon the natural element, if you want to learn how to build a go-kart, keep the motivation on the go-kart and building it, not on a grade for it.
Exactly.
Because then, like what I was going to say with the Duolingo was, it started being me wanting to get Duolingo to celebrate that I had a streak where I didn't miss a day of learning, instead of me actually wanting to learn Romanian. And so even as an adult who's been talking about this for years and years and years, I was making the mistake of steering my motivation the wrong way. I think it's really important. The last thing I'd like to talk about, if I may, is just, so what does this do? So now you raise a child in this form, which is so different than the way that everybody else does. What happens to that kid when they become an adult? And I think it's really important, if you genuinely let a child, you give them the space and the time to make their own decisions, to make their own mistakes, to learn how to negotiate with other people. Anybody who's ever worked with another person, or ever been a manager of another person, what are the things that you want? You want a person who's motivated, who wants to actually do the job, a person who's healthy enough that they can go do that job, and I mean both physically and mentally, but just like that they're confident enough that they're doing okay, that they can actually do it. There's no disturbances in their life. You want a person who's pleasant to be around because you're going to be working with them.
Yes.
You want a person who shows up on time, a person who's a clear communicator. And I ask you, which methodology of education produces that child? Is it the one who's obediently sitting in a classroom, who's told what to do, who's never asked themselves what they want to do with their own lives, never had an opportunity to negotiate anything? Or the person who has had all the time in the world to ponder those questions, is showing up at your doorstep at your job because clearly they want to do it, because the motivation to get them to take that job in the first place was, hey, I want this. And it's plainly evident that is going to produce the better worker if that's the goal. But we can just leave it at that. We don't need to get into the meaning of life end of things. But like that person's not going to starve to death. Just because they didn't go to the normal school like everybody else. They're going to, in fact, a lot of people seek them. It's interesting. A lot of the universities in the United States are well aware of, we have millions of homeschoolers. I used to give the exact statistic, but since coronavirus, the statistic is a little hard to pin down. But there are in the millions of children in the United States who who are either homeschooled or go through some alternative educational system. Millions. And so these people are applying to universities, and over the years, the university admissions departments have found out, oh, those kids actually are applying to this university because they're excited about the subject. Not because mom and dad told me I had to, or that's what everybody else is doing. They're actually excited about it. And wow, what do you know? When they're excited about it, it actually makes them a better student. And they're more engaged in class, and they're asking interesting questions, and they're going on and being successful. They're the ones that graduate from our university who go on and do something great. So guess what? All of the universities in the United States, all of them, you can, Harvard or Yale or whatever, all of them want that type of a person. And when that person shows up at the doorstep, they say, yes, please apply to our university. So if you think that this type of education is going to keep you from a great university or a great job or whatever it is,
or make you lazy, because people here would think
that it makes you lazy.
That it makes you lazy. Yes.
Nobody who wants to sit around and do nothing. That gets really boring really quickly.
If you are such a person, that you don't want to do things, then something is wrong with you. Because nature wants us.
Laziness is a person who has suffered trauma. It's a person who's been in an unhealthy environment, not a person who's self-directed.
No. And self-directed also builds on self-esteem.
Absolutely.
This is something that for Slovene people is very important, that you have self-esteem.
I mean, who's going to have self-esteem? The kid who's sitting in a class learning the thing they don't want to learn, or the person who's able to take risks and step by step accomplish the thing that they wanted to accomplish. It goes without saying. So,
yes, we could talk about it,
forever.
For hours and forever. But I think it's time to finish. I thank you very much for this conversation, and I thank our listeners for their time to listen to us. And in Slovene, najlepša hvala za vaš čas, za vašo pozornost, da ste naju poslušali in imejte še naprej lep dan. So thank you, Alex, again.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.